And joining me back on the Judge Show, we're excited to have him back. You may have seen his piece called Old Glory, and we'll have played that just before this clip. Vann, thank you for coming back on the Judge Show.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. James, wouldn't be anywhere else.
There's so many different divided people that I don't even know where to begin. I think our country is ready for healing, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm going to try to take a stab at a few things here, and then you told me a story that was unbelievable. I don't want to spoil that story. I want you to talk about it. There's people out there that are claiming that everybody's racist or everything's racist,
right? And
then there's also people like me, I guess, who are just naive to think that because I'm 36, I didn't really grow up experiencing racism the way that other people have experienced racism. This whole thing when this Black Lives Matter movement started, which I've been really railing against Black Lives Matter, the organization, because of what I think is them hijacking a phrase that almost everyone can agree with, which is Black Lives do matter, 100%. I don't have any problem with that. But then the political agenda behind them has kind of been frustrating for me. What my pastor said a couple weeks ago was that, you may not understand it, but kind of think of it as a funeral in terms of that people are grieving. You may not understand their grief or how they're experiencing things, but sometimes it's just you need to be there to hear and to listen rather than expounding your thoughts or saying, hey, don't worry about that. He's gone. You don't do that at a funeral. At the same time, there is a portion of our population who is still alive that experienced real racism. They experienced real hatred and not just discrimination, but people that were violent. And that's so foreign of a concept today, at least to me and people, most of my circle, that we almost get tired of hearing about racism. We get tired of hearing about this subject because we're like, what are you talking about? Then you told me a story, and it literally brought tears to my eyes. I guess, tell me a little bit about your background. Just tell me about your family, your upbringing, and is it Louisiana?
Yes, Louisiana.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, my parents, awesome people. So they raised us in an environment that, was there racism there? Absolutely, and I'll show you pointedly that here in a second. But they raised us to...
By the way, your looks are deceiving. How old are you?
50. So 50, and glad about it. So my parents raised us to just respect all people. That's the way they raised us. White, black, didn't matter. You respect men, women, and everyone. So it's just the way they went about carrying out the order of the day. So my mother and her brothers, they actually worked out in the field. So people think that, oh, well, Vann, you can't have parents that were working out in the field, picking cotton. Yeah, that's what they did. And my mother got as far as the 7th grade. And after that, she had to get out of school just to be able to help the parents make ends meet. They were only given 2 meals a day. So just because slaves were free and just because, we had moved on in America, there were still some problems. It was hard for blacks to transition, from that mindset of slavery all the way to becoming, productive citizens. So, and that takes decades and if not centuries to get a people who weren't allowed to read and didn't have civil rights to where they can become really equal with the rest of the country. So fast forwarding on that.
Were your grandparents slaves or were
no
anybody?
No, they weren't. So my grandparents basically lived at I don't want to call it plantation, but just at the facilities where they didn't have any job. So the only thing they could do is they didn't have any skill sets. So the only thing they could do is get out in the field. You get out in the field and you start picking cotton. And the trade-off there is, you get housing and you get meals. So limited meals. But so they didn't allow the blacks to come into the house. So the white people's house, you weren't allowed to come in. So what you were allowed to do was they would get a wagon and they would bring the meals out to the field. So you would eat out in the field and then you get back to work. So, and that's my mom. So we're not talking about my great grandmother. My mother was in the field picking cotton. So imagine that. So it's and as far as my dad, so he got an 8th grade education. So we were very limited with education concerning the parents. So I needed a lot of help to be able to get past that. But to show you a good example of, yes, racism absolutely exists. And we're not talking about plausible deniability type racism to where, people do things and they can kind of justify it, in a way. So when I was a boy, I was like 6 years old. I had 2 older brothers, many older brothers, but 2 of them, one was 7 and one was roughly around 12. So they were on a bike, right? They were leaving the house about 8 o'clock at night, somewhere around there. And they were going to the general store, just, small general store. Town, population 700. So just picture that. So they get on the bike, one bike, smaller boy. His name was Martin Luther Morris. So he was named after Martin Luther King because he was born in 1968 when Martin Luther King was assassinated. So they're on the bike. Martin's on the back seat as the younger brother. And they proceed to cross the main road. And the speed limit there was about 50 miles an hour, but very low traffic. So here comes a car. The car has good distance. So the older brother decides, okay, I can make it across the road, no issue. Now, the guy driving the car had an option. Drive normal, the kids will cross the road. Slow down, you will definitely allow the kids to safely cross the road. Or you can speed up and you can gun it. And you may be able to get them before they cross. Well, the driver took the latter. So he decided to gun it so that he can catch that bike before it got across the street. He hit the bike and it knocked both boys off the bike. The older boy that was pedaling the bike, he suffered broken legs. The younger boy, Martin had his back broken, his neck snapped, and both legs broken, went up into the air. Car kept going, and Martin hit the ground, bled out from the head, but he was already dead before bleeding out. My mother was nowhere to be around that. She wasn't home. She was at church, and she had left an older sister in charge of the kids. So, and those 2 boys got out, and they went to the store. And so mom was notified, quickly got to the scene, which wasn't too far away. There was some bystanders that was in the vicinity of the action. It was another church that had already let out. And some of those folks saw what had happened. And then there was a store owner for that general store heard the impact. So mom comes to the scene and she sees her boy, her son, 7 years old, laying in the middle of the highway. Cops on the scene, and they got the black body bag to put the boy in. So one boy they took to the hospital to get help. The other boy, no sense in taking him to the hospital. She held him limp. He was just like a rag, just a limp body. And they put the body in the bag, and they shipped that body off to the morgue. And you want to talk about trauma for a mom. It just doesn't get any worse than that. The car, I'm told, was a Lincoln Town car, black. And in a small town and even adjacent small towns, it shouldn't be that difficult to track that down. So, but there was not a lot of effort put into tracking down who did it for years and for decades. The family was not informed. And I'm told that the family wasn't informed just to keep the peace. Because if you bring this up, you bring this out, now you have a situation to where, okay, it's a hate crime, and now there's a disruption in the town, the adjacent towns. So, and that itself is wrong. You don't keep that quiet just for the sake of peace. So, so the family never knew what had happened, who did it. Up to that point, looked like you got a question.
Yeah, no. Where did this take place?
This was in southern Louisiana. So, so you take basically the New Orleans area. So north of New Orleans, about 30 miles. Okay. So very rural area. So back then, and so we proceeded on, not knowing what had happened. So then.
And what year is this?
This was, I believe, 1976. Okay. I want to say 76. So that's the year. And so we moved on, and it was decades later that the man that did it, he was on his deathbed. So he's in ICU in a local hospital. And so he's a man of God. He's a Christian, and he loves the Lord and all of that. So his conscience got the best of him. He knew he was dying in a day or two. So he had to get things right with God. So he knew he had to call my mother. So in his mind, he had to get in contact with her. So he talked to the nurse and they tracked down my mom. He gets my mom on the phone, and he says, "Ma'am, I'm the man that killed your son." So my mother began to cry right there because she had prayed to God. God, just revealed to me the person that did it. And she didn't mean that for revenge. She didn't mean it for, to try and, get justice. She just wanted to know her son was killed, and she just wanted to know the person that did it. And, God made that happen. So the guy confessed. He got her on the phone, and he told her, he says, "I did it." And so she cried, and then she had a question for him. She said, "Why did you do it?" And he wasn't really expecting that. But, you went this far. You've already confessed that you did it. You're not going to go to jail. You're about to die. So you might as well just go head on and just tell her why you did it. So, and he did. He said, "Ma'am, I was driving my car. It was after sunset, and I saw these boys on the bike crossing the road, and two black boys. And I gunned it. I gunned the car. I sped up as fast as that Lincoln could go. And as I got closer, I saw that this is gonna happen. So I said, I'm gonna kill me a N today." So he used the N word. "I'm gonna kill me a N today." And he said that to my mom. Silence my mom had. She cried more. And her next words were another question. She said, "Do you mind if I pray for you?" And then he began to cry, and he said, "I would like for you to pray for me." He knew his life was ending, and she prayed a prayer of compassion and strength for him. And he died like a day or two after that. So, but she never came back to the family with anything negative about that. She kept the family positive about America, about people, about the strength of the black community, how the black community have been wrong, but you don't go out and assume that every white person that is around you is a racist. So you have bad people on each side. So that's the posture that my mother took, and that's the posture that my dad took. But there are many levels of wrong in that case right there. And so, growing up, it's hard for white people to understand, some of them, because you don't have that. But can you imagine your kid, someone of another ethnicity? Let's say a black guy comes and your little daughter's there and on a bike, and a black man just guns it and run over your child. It's unimaginable. So, blacks have suffered much and just need people to kind of get it, and when you politicize racism, people become desensitized, not because they want to necessarily. It's just the nature of the beast. So I'm so glad that my mom and my dad raised us. And look, I have a lot of siblings. There was originally 15, 16, because we had a stillborn, and I count that one. So there was 16 of us, and there's no racist or, vindictive siblings that I have. They're all just sweet people. And I have to credit my parents for that. And as I grew up a little bit more, I was at one of my schools, my junior high school, and they took out 4 black kids to go and help, bale hay for the local farmers. And they would do that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, missing 2 periods of class. So right there, why are you going to take out Vann and 3 other black kids to go bale hay when all the white kids are still getting their education? So they're moving on through. I didn't see it as racism at the time because it was just the way things happen. You be obedient, and you don't really know what's going on. So, but the principal allowed it, the teachers allowed it, my parents even allowed it, and we just kind of moved on. Now, I flunked in the 7th grade. All the rest of my classmates, they went ahead, and I eventually caught up to the rest of the class. But because of parenting, I never took a negative angle of it. I loved my teachers. I loved the principal, and I just didn't see what was happening to me and what the long-term effects would be. And those long-term effects was I had joined the Navy and I wanted to become an officer. And I was doing well in this college prep class called Boost that the Navy had that would allow you to transition from enlisted to becoming an officer, but you had to go through this 1-year program. So I did really well there. I did the math, the English, all of that, and I was even tutoring other students in the Navy. I was tutoring them and leading in the PT and different things like that. And but when it came to going to your college, you had to pass the SAT. I did. I met the college requirements for the University of Memphis, but the Navy had requirements. I did not make those requirements. So for the SAT, and I tried multiple times, never made the cut. So it took a 3-star admiral to come in and intervene for me and say at the graduation ceremony, Van, you're going to college. And that was like God sent. I was so happy that the Navy had stepped in and allowed me to go to college. I say all that to say that looking at the SAT, the reason why I couldn't get that basic area, hey, can he learn? Yes. Can he teach other students? Yes. But the SAT can expose things, and it exposed where I was deficient, and that is what kept me back. So going all the way back to the 7th grade when I should have been in English class, I should have been in math class. No, where's Van? He's out there baling hay, but the Navy righted that wrong. And I ended up going to the University of Memphis and did very well there. And then we got a master's after that. So I was able to reset and a right set with the help of, the Navy and the way it was structured. So there's a lot that has happened to just me, and the last example I give you is my father. He would go out there and feed the hogs. So we had hogs in a hog pen that was probably about, maybe about 50 yards away from the house. So anyway, he goes out there with these 2 buckets of slop, and he would always limp when he would walk, right? And for years, as a boy, I'm looking at Dad. I'm like, why does my dad limp like that? I never knew, until shortly before he died. I asked him, I said, hey, Dad, why do you limp like that? And he told me. He said, hey, when he was a little bit younger and I wasn't born yet, and he said he was pulled over by 4 white guys. They pulled him over. He was in a truck, and they said, get out the truck. So he got out of the truck. Mom was still in the passenger side with 1 baby, who was, I think, 2. So they got him out the truck, and then they said, one of the white guys said, I think you got my tires on your truck there. And then my dad's like, no, these are my tires on the truck. And then the next comment from the white guy was, boy, you calling me a liar? And that's kind of the way things happened back then. So even though these were younger men, it was the men would refer to blacks as boy, So he told him respectfully. He said, "No, those are my tires." So needless to say, they took the tires off. They were kind enough to put the truck on blocks, and with the crowbar that they had taken the tires off with, they went ahead and whacked my dad across the knee, and he was limp for the rest of his life. And I never knew that. Those reasons like this give blacks the motive to become jaded, to become, angry with a lot of things. But my dad pressed on like an amazing human, and he raised us to respect all people. And don't take the 4 white guys that's going to crack you across the knee with a crowbar and the other white dude that's going to run over your brother and snap his neck. Don't associate all whites. But it's tough not with some people. Some people it takes much less than that for people to turn. So in spite of all that has happened to our family, I keep going back to parenting because I really think parenting is important and the decision of the individual. So my point there is I'm not that old. And these are things that happen in my lifetime. So you don't have to go all the way back to Martin Luther King and go all the way back to slavery or all the way back to the Jim Crow law. You don't have to go nearly that far back. You can come right up here and now, and you can see people that are living today, that are young, that have horrific stories that they have had to overcome.
Wow. On about every one of those. Let me back up for the first story that you told.
Mm-hmm.
The man who ran over your brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You said he was a Christian. That's not Christian behavior to me. I mean, you think he found the Lord later, or do you think that he just didn't have an understanding of Christianity? I don't see running people over as Christian. So
Right. Right. So yeah, let me talk about that a little bit. So you even got back to the days of the KKK. You have people that were in the church that were leading and different things. So I don't want to judge people one way or the other. People sometimes they do things, they don't see it as being racist. They see it as being righteous. You know, the Christian Crusaders, they didn't think that they were doing anything wrong. You didn't follow Christ, it would kill you. And that's the right thing to do in their minds. They will be judged. But, that's the way some people roll. So if you tell me that you're a Christian and I look at you and I see some racist behavior, then can we have racist Christians? Now, that's a discussion. I think that to follow Christ is not. There's no way you can be a racist and be a Christian. But am I to denounce all the people that profess Christ that may have some biased tendencies or some racial tendencies? I'll be careful about doing so. But if someone's going to run over black kids, I would say that's demonic.
Right.
So that is pure evil at its worst, if you can. So I say he was a Christian man because he felt the need. So there has to be something inside of you to where you feel so compelled that you have to expose this. Why not go out, looking like a star if you can? Why bring all the dirt so that you can look like Satan? So to me, his decision to just bring it out, ruin your legacy or whatever you want to call it, and just confess and go all the way and tell the lady that, hey, yeah, I gunned that car and I took him out. So there's something there. Something was tugging on him. And I believe in his mind that he wanted to make it right with God. Yeah, should he have done that earlier when he could have been judged by man? Absolutely. But he will be judged by God. And I don't know what the judgment is going to be. But my mom, even though that had happened, she did the best she could to give him an opportunity if there was to be an opportunity. So that, to me, blessed me more than anything, that could have happened for the sake of justice against that crime.
Right. Well, I mean, I want to make it clear on this show that that's not Christian behavior.
That is not Christian behavior. That's evil at its worst.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to. We don't have to. You brought up another point that I'd love to talk about, but maybe not on this show today, about the Crusaders. And I mean, I guess I would say this: there are bad people in every religion. There are even bad people in Christianity, or they claim to be Christians. If they truly understand or know God, though, and they truly understand Jesus and what Jesus taught,
right,
that behavior is not acceptable.
Right. And not only not acceptable, Christians should be held to a higher standard because of what they profess. So if I'm going to be a man of God, I'm going to be a man of Christ, Jesus Christ, then as I walk about, I should hold myself up to a higher standard than whatever the laws are. So if the laws say, you can do this, but is that moral? So when I say hold yourself to a higher standard, I'm not trying to say you're elite. I'm simply trying to say you have to be that banner. That's an advocate. You're an ambassador for Christ. So you got to hold yourself to a higher standard.
Right. We'll lead others to Christ. We're called to lead others to Christ, but you do that not just through. Some people can do that by being a preacher or by telling others about him, or some people can do that just by their actions and behavior. We should all be trying to do that by our actions and behavior.
Yeah.
Do you think? I've got a lot of questions. Your parents, you credit them with your upbringing. How were they able to? How are they able to keep their? Is it their Christianity, you think, that really kept them from being? I don't know how to say it. Biased towards that racism that was shown to them. What do you attribute to how they were able to keep their hatred from coming out? I guess, and it seems like they weren't like that.
Right. Yeah. So they were very, very strong. So they weren't weak. So, and sometimes in life, people mistake kindness for weakness. So they were kind, but they were not weak. They were very, very strong people. So I would credit a lot of it to the Christian values that they had. But then again, I have to attribute a lot of it to their parents. So my grandfather was loved in his community in Selma, Alabama. So he was right there in the deep of the South, but that town loved him. Okay, they loved him. So he had a motto, and it was 2 words: be nice. That was his motto. So take it how you want to take that. Be nice. And if you're nice, strong but nice, it'll take you a long way in life. So I would have to say yes. My mother, yes, but she was raised by her parents. So basically, generations can carry on good things, or you can have generational curses that just plague your family for generations and generations. So I am a product of my grandfather, and he's probably a product of it. So lineage is so important. So I would say that Christianity and family.
Okay. You bring up something that BLM is adamantly against, which is the nuclear family. What are your thoughts on that? We had a discussion before, and I mean, I guess you see it everywhere in terms of any city that is, anywhere with how would you describe it? If you go to a black neighborhood, it doesn't matter. You go to a white neighborhood,
right.
But if you go to a neighborhood that has poverty, typically, you're going to see an abandonment by fathers. They're usually out either doing drugs, or they're in jail, or they're in prison. It could be white, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. But you're saying that it was your parents' upbringing that helped you,
right?
Why are people so adamantly against today, I guess, saying that, hey, we need fathers around, we need parents around? Why is there a group that wants to dismantle that?
Yeah, very good question. I will tell you that the bottom line, no matter what the organization is, and you mentioned groups trying to hijack the narrative, which is true. I believe that too. The bottom line to all of this is, and this is going to be encouraging for Americans, is we have a silent majority. The silent majority knows what wrong looks like. Okay, so no matter if you're talking about fatherless upbringing of kids, or you're talking about black on black crimes, or you're talking about cops killing people, being judge, jury, executioner, and no matter what you're talking about, most of Americans know what wrong looks like. Okay, yeah, you got people on the side of the phrase, okay, but they know what wrong looks like. The real discussion is, like you're saying here, is what does right look like? Okay, that's where everything is. So you will see, and I'll say more about that in a second, you will see people on Facebook on the left pushing, agendas out that's clearly wrong, and they're trying to show the people on the right and others on the left that, look, this is wrong, this is wrong. And then you got people on the right, they're pushing stuff, about killings in Chicago, let's say. This is wrong. You're right. Both sides are correct. You're showing all the stuff that is wrong. It is not morally right. It is not legally right. It's wrong. Okay, so, but the discussion is not there, because you got my support on that. Everything is wrong that you push out that's wrong. But the discussion is, what does right look like? So what do you do about the things that we all agree are wrong? There's, if a guy, gets a girl pregnant, I don't care what ethnicity you are, you take care of that child, period. Okay, so those are the wrong things. So what does right look like? And I'll say this, right, I'm warning this down here. Right in America has, I think, just three basic parts: what is legally right, what is morally right, and what is best. So a lot of things that happen in this country is not legally right, is not morally right, and is not best. So you can almost justify something that's legally right. Self-defense is a good example of that. Someone comes into your home, you have a right to, and if they're threatening your life, you have a right in your home to exercise, deadly force. Why? Because deadly force is being used against you, or you feel your life is threatened. Okay. Now, I can apprehend that person to subdue him. He still lives, or I can kill him. I have a right. So legally right, morally right, what's best? So that's why the discussions really need to be in America, because that's really where we are. So on the outside, we may look like we're having discussions about, oh, America is imploding, we're going down fast. No, we're really up here. We're up here. Discussions on what does right look like.
When it comes to you raising your kids, I guess, what would you give to advice? Doesn't matter what ethnicity. What would you give advice to how to raise kids, how to be that father role model? I guess just talk me through that.
Okay, yeah. Let me just.
And what do you tell your kids about right now and what's going on? Like, how are you talking? What are the conversations in your household looking like?
Yes. So I will tell you, first and foremost, you cannot make people care. There are so many dads out there that just refuse to take care of their kids. They're not going to do it. They don't want to do it. Nothing you can say to them will get them to become sympathizers for what they should do. So guess what? So the thing that I say is very simple. I can't make you care, but I can sure as heck move to make you uphold your obligations. So that's really where it's at. So God affects the heart, okay? But what I can do is work with the local officials, continue to raise the awareness like we're doing to ultimately enforce people to uphold their obligations, okay? And taking care of your kid is one of those obligations. So I'm not going to try and, play with someone's heart when I know that their heart is not there. I can't change their heart anyway. Only God can do that. So, but my thing is, for one, lead by example. So if you're going to be a dad, lead, okay? And my son saw me in the house. They saw me taking care of the boys. They saw what I did as a father. Now, if they want to go out and make babies and don't take care of them, first of all, you've been taught. You've been taught not to do that. And I can't make you, but, I'm for any reform or stiffening of the laws that's on the books to make fathers accountable. So that's really where I am with that. I don't take the soft road. I take the road that says, no, you're going to do your job and take care of your kid.
Gotcha. Where do you think we go from here as a country? Like, how do we heal? What's the right move? Is just more conversations like this? I mean, is it more, I don't know, everybody wants a solution, right? And that's the other problem, I think, is that sometimes we expect politicians to do something when they don't need to do anything. We just need to talk, or we need time, or we need whatever it might be. And maybe that's not the right thing. Maybe we do need some action. I guess I'm just asking, like, where do we go from here, and what, if there was a solution, what is the solution?
Yeah, I'll tell you that if there's one thing that we all know that humans do best, they communicate, or they do worse and they fail to communicate. We see the results of good communication, bad communication. So like you said, first thing is to have conversations. And that's going to take patience. You're not going to be able to take a silver bullet and fix the problem. There's no silver bullet out there. The only silver bullet is God. That's it. But where that conversation needs to be first and foremost is, first of all, let's have discussions about what right looks like. So the noise that's out there, you mentioned noise earlier, the noise that's out there is noise about what wrong looks like we talked about. People just firing off left and right about what's wrong. Okay, both sides are correct. You're sending out, stuff that's bad, and you're correct, it's bad. And you guys sending out stuff that's bad, yeah, you're right, it's bad. Okay, let's get up here. Now, what does right look like? So what do we do about the things that we say are bad? So what do we do about those things? So that's really where the discussions need to be. And I will tell you specifically, to address your question, is where do we go from here? We really need to look at civic responsibilities versus civil rights. We really need to look at that. Let me give you an example. I got family members, and I see them on Facebook. They're pushing to white friends, and they're telling them, look, this is an issue. We have racial disparities in this country. We have economic disparities in this country. And if you sit quiet and you don't say anything, then you're part of the problem. So now what they're hinting at, or not hinting, what they're saying is they're saying you have a civic responsibility. Okay. Then the people sitting quietly, they're looking, some of them going to move, but then some of them are looking at their civil rights. And yes, white people got civil rights just like black people. Civil rights is not a black thing. It's a thing. Okay, so we all have our civil rights. And so the white people, let's say, they're looking at, their Fifth Amendment rights. Okay, they have a right to remain silent. And so you have, the tug of war between civic responsibilities and civil rights. So that's up here, though. That's that conversation of what does right look like? So what do you do that is legally right, morally right, and what is best? So we have to take the fight that's happening and say, okay, we're up here now, guys. What does right look like? Legal, moral, best. And so we all have to come to agreement. Do you get angry and more angry if you're, saying, hey, you guys need to help? Do you continue to get angry with that? Or do you say, okay, let's have a conversation and respect each other's viewpoints and have some patience and ultimately execute compassion with strength? So I think that's where we really are, is we need to keep talking. We need to keep having conversations. This conversation helps. Other conversations like this, there's going to be some people that disagree with what we're saying here, and that's okay. We can disagree, but let's do it, with a good taste, and not go high. I call it high and right, which is no pun intended. So high and right, which is basically just if someone gets on your communications network or your blog and they're saying something different, contrary to you, then you block them. Okay, see, when you block people, that is no communication happening there. So you lost that opportunity. And half the time, people just have a mindset, and they need to just broaden that, if that makes sense.
It definitely does. I don't know if it's just the people that I've worked for in the past, but one of the things that I always like is, and maybe that's why when I saw the rioting and the protests, and you brought up a good point in terms of people mentioning the problems on both sides. It irritates me because I've always worked for people that don't want to hear about problems; they want to hear about solutions. And if you're going to bring a problem, you better bring a solution with you. And I don't know if that's a military thing or what, but it's.
I don't know, because I've been in the military so long. I feel like it's a military thing, but maybe it's not.
Well, I mean, so regardless, I agree with you. Though I think communication is key. I think that I think compassion, communication, and I really think personally that our country needs to turn its eyes back towards the Lord.
Yeah.
I think that we're at a point where everybody's going, oh, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, hey, I got an answer for you right here.
There you go. The Word of God. That's an answer, buddy.
Right. So anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to learn more about you, is it evangelomorris.com? Yep,
evangelomorris.com. And you can find all the videos that I push also on YouTube. So it's just put my name in Evangelo Morris, and you'll see it come up. So youtube.com/C/Evangelo Morris, and you'll find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much, James.